Welcome everyone. I'm really delighted to be having this conversation today and that you're all here to listen to two very wise souls. This is building a dual career as an artist and a screen composer. And we have the fantastic Tawiah and Sophie Degli Alessandri, also known
Hello, people.
as Drum and Lace. Um, and they are both extremely experienced artists and composers for film and TV. Have either of you done games? Not yet. I don't think so. Not yet. Yeah. Um, so I think this will be a really interesting conversation. I think we're going to dive straight in, if that's okay with everyone. We will chat for about 45 minutes and then we'll catch up with some questions. So as they come up for you, please do pop them in the chat, and we will certainly circle back. So I think we want to dive straight in with just this concept of your voice. And I'd love to hear from both of you how you define your voice, if you do, if that's applicable for you, and whether that adapts, shifts, whether you're able to hold on to it or you have to let it go when you have these two hats as an artist, as your performing personality, and then versus a screen composer. So, Sophie, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. I feel like my relationship with this question has sort of evolved over time. I think when I first started scoring, it was sort of at the same time as Drum and Lace was kind of taking form. So it was, around like 2016. And I feel like at the time it was really important for me to have like one voice. So like Drum and Lace was like the voice that kind of informed everything. So and I was really adamant about it and often had to like fight my way to like have the pseudonym and the moniker be the credit. Because to this day, I think it's not frowned upon, but definitely, like some studios and producers will prefer to have like a name rather than a stage name. But so I was very, very like, it's all Drum and Lace. It all lives in this world. And in my mind, by doing that, it was elevating both sides, right? So it was like one place you saw my releases, you saw the photos I was taking, and you would get an idea of what the scores would be like. So that was like a very clear thing in my mind. And then I feel like as things progressed, um, my voice of like me as a person and me as an artist, not that they started to drift apart, but I just could feel them splitting a little bit. I could see how the career composer had to be separated from like this pure passion artistic thing for me. So in recent years, I started sort of like adopting my birth name. And now I'm essentially kind of like split. So I do scoring things as Sofia degli Alessandri, and then I do all of my artistic stuff as Drum and Lace. And honestly, it's just helped me personally because it makes my scoring work feel less precious. Like I feel like if I do something that doesn't sound like my artist project, it's not like a stain on everything that I have, a stain on everything that I've done on the artist stuff. So I feel like this evolution right now feels good. And it's still me, it's like the Venn diagram. I'm still like there right in the middle, but at least, Drum and Lace has gotten more electronic and more like beatful. And they've kind of diverged, but they're still kind of part of a whole. So that's I'd say hopefully that answers the question. But um,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, very much. I think that's really interesting. Tawiah, does that feel familiar, or do you come at it from a different angle?
That is super interesting. I think for me, um, I was an artist first because you said you kind of started at the same time. So I was an artist first, and my entry point um, was co-scoring with Lindsay. I see you. I see Lindsay. So for me, it was about kind of finding uh, a voice, the sweet spot we call it, because Lindsay comes at things from a different frame of reference. I was coming at things from a completely different frame of reference, and somewhere in the middle we find what our sound is. And but it's been important for me to also establish what my sound is as just Tawiah as a composer, and then I obviously have my artistry, but I'm there through it all. Like there's a common thread, and I think in all the scores I've been able to get like my vocals in and like crunchy harmonies, and I think that runs through everything I do. It's on score, it's in my stuff, and yeah, I reckon it will keep evolving. I haven't used a different artist name, but it was something that I thought about in the beginning because the score stuff, the first score that I did with Lindsay for Without Sin was so different to my artistry. But also I found it really cool. So it's like I do want people to hear it, but I don't want people to be confused because it's such a different sound. Um, but I guess that's something that I'm also just like it is something I've done and it's pretty cool. And it's clear that it's score and it kind of lets people into a wider world. I'm expanding as an artist and as a composer. So at this moment in time, I feel like everything's kind of under the umbrella. There's Tawiah and Lindsay. And like, yeah, it's working at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many pluses and minuses. Like if I think something like Dickinson that I did as drum and lace has been so important. It was so important to do it as that because it really helped my artist career immensely just to kind of put me on the map. And then, I feel like is it really kind of helped to launch me in so many ways. But then I worked on a film called Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is such a beautiful film, but the sound of it was so completely, I felt in my mind, so completely different and or like orchestral romantic.
Mm.
And as much as it's cool that Drum and Lace was the name on that, because it is very like culture, finger on the pulse type of film. It was great because it brought so many new fans in, but at the same time, that was the project that kind of caused the split for me. Because I was like, I feel like I want to be vulnerable in a way that I am personally, whereas Drum and Lace is more of this like, to be honest, the kind of like braver, more like, whatever alter ego. So I feel like for me it was like an emotional. It was I guess I've never thought about it. It was like an emotional thing
Mm.
to separate, but like that's the beauty. It's different for everyone. Um, yeah.
I feel like I find this idea of sort of preciousness, which not in a derogatory way, but in a what are you holding on to? Because we're being creative beings, and although when we're serving the project, there's obviously a certain amount you have to let go, and I
Mm.
wonder how you both approach your voice and whether that feeds in, how much that rubs against that idea of having to let something go. Does that feed into maybe there are projects you say no to
Mm.
because even though you're serving the projects, but maybe it doesn't feel like you, even if you're not necessarily writing that way? I'd love to hear your thoughts on if there's ever that sort of it's almost like a soul rub, isn't it? It's like it doesn't feel like something that is me.
I think for me, because it's been new, I've been scoring for TV for a couple of years now. So I'm just excited. I'm just like, oh my God, let me try this, let me grow. Oh, this is cool. I've never done something like this before. So but I did have to learn very quickly, yeah, that something I would do isn't necessarily like what the director wants. And you are in service, you're part of a bigger picture, and there are so many opinions. So like it was beautiful. Actually, it has been beautiful learning to let that go and be a bit easy, because yeah, like I remember doing a queue and I was just like, this is sick. I was gassed. Lindsay was like, this is sick. Let's go. And then they were like, yeah, we just want a little something simple. Just pair it right back, guys. And I was just like, got it, got it, got it. But it was a beautiful lesson, just really at the moment I'm kind of enjoying taking direction and seeing how I can grow as a composer and as an artist. And like at the moment, I've done alongside Lindsay, it's been really varied, like comedy, thriller, rom-com, fantasy, and through doing all of that, I'm kind of finding out what I like, So I think in time, the no's will probably, start to come as more as you know, more gigs come in. But yeah, at the moment, I'm just really um learning, taking it all in. Yeah.
I feel like I've said no to only a handful of things ever. And I feel like nowadays, with the way that the industry has been since the strikes, I don't think I've said no to anything necessarily. And I mean, the times that I have, I think it's been that either the script or just the story didn't resonate,
Mhm.
or it was about essentially if it's not something that I feel like I can like you said, Talia, be like in service of. If I don't
Mhm.
feel like I can find my own voice within the story,
Mhm.
not to make it about us composers, but if we can't like find our contribution to it, then it's just not really worth it. And two of the projects that I can think of that I said no to, one was a horror movie that was just like so gory, and then it went on to do really, really well, which I was surprised by, but also not. But still glad I didn't do it because then you know how everyone here, I'm assuming, has done some scoring. Like when you're just watching things over and over, it's just.
A lot.
And the other was just like a really, and I hate to say, like really stupid rom-com, whatever. And it's just like sometimes it's just too much. Sometimes it's just too much. So that's the privilege that I've had to be able to say no to things, but it's been a minute. But yeah, the being precious, I mean, I feel like it's hard because sometimes you do feel like you've done something really cool and you're
Mm.
like, and then they literally just want a pad, or they're just like,
Mhm.
we're just gonna take this one stem and
Literally.
but as you said, like, as has been said, like it's all learning lesson. And most of the time, if I come up with a cool sound and then I just don't use it again, I'll just put it in my own music and
Thank it.
whoop.
Thank it. Yeah, that cue went into something else, yeah, and they
Yes,
appreciated it over there. And I said, yeah.
I have definitely used parts of demos for projects I haven't gotten to
Mhm.
then like there's something from a project I didn't get a demo and I was just so like not pissed, but it was just like, well, I'm gonna show them, and it ended up
Yeah,
on my last record. So every time I play it, I'm like, I showed them.
absolutely. And that's how I view it as well, though. Sometimes when you don't get a gig, it's like, well, I did work on something that I believe in and now it's in the bank. So
Yeah.
hopefully it will get used for something.
Do you feel
Yeah.
like it's interesting you just said that? Do you feel like from speaking to both of you, you have such a strong, even though it's developing, sense of identity, and do you feel like that comes through when you're creating and when you're letting go? I'm wondering if it's interesting to me that you both really seem to who you are musically and are very accepting of the process and the journey, which just isn't easy. We're sort of merrily going along our way and hoping for the best, but creatively, is that feeding your sort of inner confidence about taking those steps as you're making music? It's getting, you're getting no's, you're getting pushback, you're moving it along. Do you feel like it all ties in to your sense of creative self?
Yeah, I mean, I think the scoring work gives me structure because I think that the hardest thing about being an artist is that, especially like whenever I'm writing new music, it's like there's so many tools, there's so many things to do, there's so much, we're at a point in civilization where it's like everything is at our fingertips. So it always feels like what you're doing as an artist is not so much like going outward, but just trying to like pull like a few things inward, right? To be able to like write a piece of music without being like, oh, I could use that or I could use that. So you're already doing so much guesswork and so much exploring that like having somebody tell you what they need and having a schedule and it's actually really nice. It's like it gives a little bit of structure to like days that could just be kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel the same?
I
Like,
I actually do feel the same because I'm definitely um a floater, I say, you know, like I've got to really, when I'm working on an album, it's a deep inquiry. It takes, I have to block the time out and I can't have other things going on. Um, but in saying that, I have enjoyed the structure. It's changed the pace when you're working to deadlines and everything. So it's helped actually give me structure within my own stuff. It's like, all right, cool, just setting myself these little targets and I can see that in myself. I still need to block out the time and I still allow myself to flow. But definitely giving myself kind of deadlines has been helpful. And I've got that from the high pace of composing for TV. So yeah.
Do you both find you're able to put clear boundaries in place? I mean, we have, like you said, it's hard to say no to projects. Are there times where you've said, no, this is my own creative time. I cannot let things in to that? Or are you able to bounce back and forth, maybe a week at a time? What works best for you?
You want to go?
It
Well,
depends. I mean, I feel like the moment, like I lost out on a gig yesterday, 2 days ago. Um, which to be honest, like I was excited about, but now that I didn't get it, I'm like, oh my God, now I have at least a couple weeks to work on my artist stuff because that's the thing. It's like you pitch and you demo and you interview, and then you're kind of like in this limbo where it's like you could either start working next week or, or then you're waiting until you go through this process again. So it's like now I'm kind of like there's things that are like going to start down the line, but right now like the rest of this week is like for the rest of my EP and record and a remix I have to do. So it's like you sort of find little moments like that. So it's not always a bad thing when you don't get projects because then you can fill up the time with something else. But I would say like I mean I definitely always usually have to prioritize the film work because that's what pays the bills. So it's I kind of can't unless I get to like a level where I'm writing something so extraordinary that whatever, then I feel like the film stuff always kind of gets
yeah,
put in first.
I
I don't
hear that. Yeah. But I definitely try to block time out for working on my album. So Lindsay and I have been working on Black Ops 2, season 2 at the moment. And like we're getting there, we're almost done. So I'm like, okay, July, I'm just going to try and block it out as best as I can. Like that's for me. If things come in, then I'll try and, but I've put nothing in. I'm like, this is just my time. But when I'm kind of working on um at the moment, like the big like this year, the first half of this year has been really like intense in terms of the projects that I've been doing, but really fun. But I've been doing vocal arrangements for other artists going on tour, and then I have voiceover work and then the scoring stuff. And so for me, it's just important that when it comes to my album, that I have as little of all of that stuff going on so that I can just really hone in because I need that. I need that. But yeah, like Sofia said, sometimes if the money comes, sometimes you got to try and balance. But I really am trying to be disciplined with that because it's important for me. I love performing. I love working on my own music. I love the live aspect of it, and I want to do that. So it's important that I carve that time out and plan ahead so that next year I know, okay, I've got a project out and I can perform as an artist in my own right. So this year, because I've written loads of features for other artists, because I know, all right, cool, I still want to have that. I like to do lots of things. I like to keep myself on my toes. So I'm like, okay, I've got this feature, I've got that feature. I can jump on stage with this artist and jump on stage with that artist. So I'm still kind of feeding that need to perform. I'm still writing. But yeah, when it comes to my own thing now, I think that's where I really need to, yeah, lock off the time so that I know that next year I can do, some Tawiah shows.
Yeah, the live shows is definitely the hardest thing to plan because those are planned so far in advance, but then
Mhm.
the scoring work is can be really last minute. So
Mhm.
it's like, you can carve out a mini tour, say like end of October, but then who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows what's going to come in, and you just kind of have to go with it and just hope that you can make it work. And
totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Can we talk a little bit? You both touched on it, but sort of the financial realities of balancing the two careers. I think you both said screen scoring work obviously pays. Does that mean it funds your artist hat? Is that how you look at it? How do you balance choosing where to use your resources?
100% does. I mean, I have literally taken on projects because I'm like, oh, now I can do a music video. I'm not like gonna be very transparent about it. Or, it's like anytime if I'm on a project that's like particularly nitpicky or hard, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know what? This is going to like, for a living, and then I can hire that graphic designer for the album art, or I can do a photo shoot with, the person that I like to do photo. So it's like that's always sort of like it's like a reward for like that other work.
Mhm.
And yeah, because I mean, for me at least, the artist work is I'd say I've gotten it to the point where like I can sometimes essentially break even, but I wouldn't say I'm like making a living from that. It's all from the scoring stuff. No matter what it looks like on social media.
I second that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
A
yeah,
wild, wild west out there.
yeah.
What are the considerations now? Because the industry is, or suddenly the live industry is changing so much. We were talking a little bit before we started about going old school and flyering, but as everything changes, how has that affected your, I guess, financial considerations? Maybe not in depth, but again, your priorities. Like how are you building that brand, that artist identity? Where do you put your resources to put that stamp out there into the world?
I think at the moment, for me, because like I said, I'm still in the process of writing my new record, but I've still got my name out there. So like I'm about to be on K Tempest's new record. I did all the live vocal arrangements. I'm going to feature on Alpha Mist record as well. So I've got all of these opportunities. I'm working with Speakers Corner Quartet. So it's not intense. I'm not touring with these artists, but I'll jump up and do one gig here, one gig there, one gig there. So people are like, oh, who's this character? I'll tell you, let me check it. So just making sure that there's, that it's not like big commitments. I don't have to do big tours, but I'm on records and my name and my voice is still out there. That's been really great for me. That's been really great for me.
Yeah, that is such a great way. Like I was mentioning, I'm working on a rework slash remix. People like to call them reworks now. I think it sounds a little bit more poetic, and it sounds, I don't know. But so rework for somebody, and I worked with another composer earlier this year, and I've done a couple, so that it helps to just kind of like keep up momentum and to keep up, I don't want to say relevancy, but to just kind of keep you on people, on the tip of people's tongues, essentially. But I think for me, with the way that the live industry is and how everything is going, it's like whenever there's an opportunity, I'll take it. But I've been trying to kind of zero back into getting more in touch with like the community here in London for what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Which is why I've been trying to like throw this series of concerts twice a year, essentially to try to just kind of form a community offline.
Yeah.
And that's what Daisy was mentioning. I was like going around Hackney Central, just the half an hour before hopping on here with my tape, like sticking stuff up. Because I was speaking to a sound person, who did sound for me on Sunday night at a show, and he was 22, and I was like, "Excuse me, young friend, so where do you get your info? Like, do you go out? Do you go to shows?" And he was like, "Yeah, I do, but I'm not on social media."
Mm.
And I was like, "Huh." And it's like, word of mouth at uni, so I feel like there's this like pullback to in-person community, more intimate things. So that's where I'm trying to put my resources right now. And if somebody wants to book me somewhere, far away, then great. But like, I'm definitely not like spending my time trying to book like international tours, because it
Yeah, I
feels a
think,
little
yeah.
pointless.
I just want to speak to that. I think community is really, really important. Um, and like speaking to each other, checking in, making sure we're all right, because it's hard out here, and it's really beautiful when you know that you've got support. Like yesterday, I met up with it's about 8 of us in a group, and we just meet up to sing, you know, because when was the last time we met up to just sing? It was when we were youths, when we were young. Like now we do it professionally. It's just rehearsal for the gig or in a studio session. And actually, it's been so beautiful kind of reconnecting with our why collectively. And but also it's we're helping each other. It's like one of us was like, oh gosh, I'm playing a festival. Is anyone available just to help and jump on some vocals? Yeah, I got you. I got you. Let's like support each other. So that's so important. It's so important.
Yeah, agreed.
I think I think that's such a good point. I do. I had a moment of kind of pure joy. I went to see Sofia support Ava Waves, who are also screen composers who've just done the Buccaneers. And I had such a moment because I think the composer community, which is where I'm primarily am right now, is incredibly tight.
Mm,
And there was something so joyful about seeing, the three of these amazing composers
Mm.
go and sit in this performing world, which is for me my kind of old world,
mm,
and do something equally brilliant. And it was the first time that I really thought, wow, like there's not we tend to sit in our rooms with our
mm,
our synths and our rigs and everything, or we meet up for coffee. But I just love this such a beautiful idea of meeting up musically without it being you got an invoice for it, or there's a contract, or there's someone to sign off on. Does that do you ever feel that way, or are you able to still, maybe this is my cynicism coming through, that level of sort of freedom or joy when you're creating your own stuff? Now it has become a career, it's become a somewhat means of income, a hat you're wearing. Do you get creative? Do you feel that true creative freedom? Tawiah, do you want to?
I think since I got into composing for TV and film, it's allowed me to be a bit more relaxed about my solo projects, because before I put a lot of pressure, because I'm like, I'm not making money. I need to make money from this next record. And so in that sense, I feel like actually, yeah, it has allowed me um to give myself grace and to really allow whatever it is that I need to share in this moment to come out and for it to be what it is, because I'm not putting like a financial pressure on it. So yeah, in that sense, it is allowing me to be creative, and it's allowing me to be able to go and sit in a room and sing with my sisters just for singing's sake, which is really beautiful. Um, so yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I feel the same exact way. I feel like having taking the financial pressure off of it keeps it so much purer.
Mm.
And it's like and then you're not doing it as a means to an end, you're just doing it for yourself, and I
Mhm.
feel like there's a creativity that comes from that. And also just the ease of being able to put music out if you want on your
Mm.
own, like I'll try to do releases with labels, lulls, because like that's a whole other um can of worms. But then once a year I'll just like throw out like a 4-track EP of ambient stuff, and I'll just put it out on AWOL, which is what I use for distribution. And and it's just like a pure expressive, just kind of like whoever wants it, whoever wants to receive this, here you go, you know. But then again, there's no financial pressure. Like anyone posting about it or saying anything about it is just like an extra. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what Tawiah is. Yeah, it's nice.
That's really beautiful. I think we need that space, right? We need that space to play. That's what it feels like. I think when there's the adage about turning your passion into a career and you lose all sense of play. And it's the thing that feeds our soul, really. Otherwise, it's just, music by numbers. If
We're waiting for your release, Daisy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I did this session, so I can pick your. No, not really. It's going to percolate. I do feel like I'm sort of pulling towards business questions, but I do think it's as important for those that might be considering moving ahead with an artist profile. But do you brand yourself? We're talking about, digital age. Live shows are impossible on the scale that they would have been 15 years ago. Do you think about branding? Do you think about separate branding? Is there a crossover because you are still you, regardless of what you're doing? How are you approaching the sense of identity, I guess, with the two career choices?
Yeah, I feel like Sofia de Alessandri is like drum and lace light. It's like I'll do a photo shoot with I shoot with this amazing photographer called Marika Macklon, and it'll be like, okay, let's get like the really like edgy like dark photos, and then like, okay, let's just do a pretty one with flowers so I can then use it. So there'll be a differentiation in that sense, and I feel like so there is definitely like a very conscious difference for me. And definitely like very strong look, which I think reflects kind of like personality wise. Just yeah, trying to differentiate oneself from kind of like all of the slop and stuff that's out online. But it's not easy because again, it takes resources, it takes time, it takes finding reliable people to work with, which I think when you're working on film and TV, you're sort of, brought into a team. But when you are doing your own thing, one of the hardest things is to find people that are reliable to keep going and working with. So I feel like once you have something down, then you can kind of start creating. But yeah, so I think about it a lot and, curating things and trying to kind of like stay consistent. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
about it a lot actually.
I feel like I'm still kind of figuring it out. Like social media for me, I do post, I use Instagram, but I'm not consistent. I don't post every day. I do stories, but I don't like post on my main page or anything like that because I feel it's funny because my cousin's always like, you need to post, like just put the camera up when you're working on the thing and da, 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 da. But like when I'm working, I've tried from time to time, and actually I do enjoy like in my regular life, I'm the one with the taking the pictures, doing the videos. But I think when it comes to my own thing, I'm just so in the work that I kind of I'm not thinking about documenting it. But I actually have a photo shoot next week because because it is something that, I'm like I do need to update my photos. I've been working out loads, I've changed a bit, so I need to update the things and starting to think about it and look at images and get quite excited about it again because I think sometimes I often feel quite overwhelmed about like taking photos and all of this, but actually I feel because it's been such a minute since my last photo shoot, and I feel like, I know what the album is saying, I know what it feels like, I know what it I know what I want to say. I feel like that's basically helping me inform the photographers and everybody that's jumping in on the shoot. So I feel good about it, but it does take time. It does definitely takes time.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it becomes about the work. You're able to be work led, whatever that is. Because I think Sophie, you said before about it, the artist side is sort of pulling inward.
Mhm.
Similarly, with not wanting camera in your face when you're just trying to sit with your music,
Mhm.
it can be quite scary to feel like, oh, I've got to present myself with a photo shoot or online. But this work is me, so then I have to be myself authentically. But then who is it? Who am I? What am I doing? And it's kind of a tailspin. So I love this idea of you know what the album is saying, therefore you know what
Mhm.
Yes.
the imagery is saying. Similarly,
Yeah.
you know what drum and lace is. You know
Mhm.
what that aesthetic and that goal is. I
But
think
then and it sounds like Tawiah and I are very similar, where it's just like the music that you're writing is so informed by like a greater kind of visual and world of its own, and or at least like I literally like create like worlds, and it's like, okay, so what's like in this, and like, what's the tale, and love me a concept album, like, so it's just like everything just has to be consistent, and it's a lot of work, but it's so fulfilling, or it's just like you're creating this whole, and I'll start getting really deep into like, for my last album it was like a shell was on the cover, and then I was getting like mathematical with the music, and then it's just, it just you spiral, but that's the creative process,
Yeah.
like that's the beautiful thing, like you were saying, Daisy, that you get lost in. So it's work, but it's also like informed by the music that's just kind of come out of you. So it's like it comes from somewhere. Um,
Sure.
but
and
again, you need to find the time to harness that as well.
Mhm.
we come back to schedules and boundaries and carving out bits of your life. Um, have you ever has your work as an artist ever directly led to a screen job, or I guess
Yeah.
vice versa? Has it? Do you
It's
think
a definite yes for me.
that?
I wouldn't be here without the writer of Without Sin. So that's the first ITV series that I did with Lindsay. So I knew Fran, and back in the day, having conversations, I remember sitting around and she was showing me one of her short films, and it was like, oh man, being a composer for film and TV I didn't even know I could do it at that point when we were sitting around having a conversation. And she was like, if I ever get commissioned for, a TV series, I'm going to call you to do the score. And apparently, my missus sent her a follow-up email, which she told me the other day. I was like, all right, manager. She's like, do you think of tea? Like, so she did, in the pandemic, she called me and she's like, I've been commissioned. Um, I'd love you to do the score. And like at the same time, I was having conversations with Harriet. Um, who was the managing director at Manners McDade at the time. And she planted the seed. She was like, I think you'd be amazing at scoring. And I was kind of like, it was a pandemic, so I had time. I've never done it. I don't know what this looks like. But then downloading loads of silent movies off of YouTube and just trying and seeing how I got on and really enjoying it. And yeah, it's just the timing. Signed to Manners, Fran hit me up. Then they were like, "You've never done this before, babes. So we're gonna connect you with Lindsay, because Lindsay was music editor for The Crown at the time. So it was also Lindsay's first TV series. And we just hit it off. I was like, I'm thinking this, and Lindsay fed into that. And I was like, this is sick. You made it sound all TV vibey. And so yeah, and it's just been beautiful. We're on like our fifth TV series, six now. So it was, yeah, from Fran being a fan of Tawiah as an artist, and I literally every request that comes in, I thank her. I'm just like, and yeah, it's beautiful when someone sticks to their word, because it's an industry where people gas a lot, and she really did. She was like, I'll give you a shout, and yeah, that's everything. And I always want to be a woman of my word. I'm just like, big respect. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, when people actually pull through and they actually like think about you, that's like that's the thing. That's the dream.
Yeah.
I I don't think that I have gotten something because they were like, "Oh, I know, you know, I think it's having an artist project helped to kind of seal the deal. Like I think that was definitely the case for Dickinson, where it was like Drum and Lace had just put out a few things, and I'd done a few projects, like documentary projects, and had done some additional music, like very little here and there. But I think because of the being an artist, it kind of felt right with, you know, the fact of Dickinson being a period, like period piece TV show, and then they wanted sort of like a electronic score. So I think it helped in that. I don't know if it was like the deciding factor, but I definitely feel like people do think that it's cooler to hire an artist, just because they think that you'll be able to bring more creativity. Whether or not that creativity can actually happen within the project is a whole other story. But you know, at first, it's always cool when people seem willing to like bring an artist on because of their sound and what they, you know, what they've done and can contribute.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think almost, I guess, question about reverse engineering that. I know it's not uncommon for composers to create concept albums or to come up with an artist project because that is an area perhaps they're not getting offered, or they want to pivot their career choices for screen composing. Is that something either of you have ever thought about or would consider, maybe putting something out because you want to do more of this style, or does that ever feed into the narrative, or do you manage to keep them completely separate?
No, like if it doesn't feel right, like the thing that I've learned in my not many, very many years of doing this, but in the years that I have been doing it, is that people can see completely see through inauthenticity. Like people can tell if you're not being authentic. They can tell if that it doesn't sound like believe. I don't know how to describe it. Like I don't know how you could describe music as believable or not, but I do feel like the way that people resonate with music when you really feel it. So I don't think I would ever like put out an orchestral suite just because I
Mm.
wanted to get an orchestral score. I think it would just be like hopefully somebody is smart enough to realize that like maybe I could do it. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that
Yeah,
very harsh?
no, I mean, I think it really, you both are very authentic people, and I think it really it plays into my sense of you both as artists and what that means to you, what that means to you creatively, musically, soulfully, versus the screen composing. Do you ever feel, I'm trying to think of an alternative word to pressure because I don't want it to be negative, but do you ever feel a push to spend, other than financially, a push to spend more time or have more artistic output versus screen composing? Does that, when you're looking across a year, for example, are you able to have a strong overview? Do you have outside pressures pushing you in one direction or another at certain times? Do you have complete freedom to choose your life? How does it work?
I feel like I'm at the mercy of the industry. I'm just like hitting up my agents, being like, "Hey, what's going on?" No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess in a way, like it is, it is sort of open, you know, with like being able to say yes or no. But like, there's definitely, I don't think pressure from like anyone else, but just pressure on yourself to try to like, um, you know, make a living and be
That's
keep
it.
busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think like, yeah. I don't feel pressure. It's just I just really want to work on the projects that excite me the most. And yeah, and that's it. And like I said, there's loads that I'm doing at the moment. Like I run a choir, I do the vocal arrangements, I do the voiceover. So it's just for me, um, it's yeah, balancing all of those things. And yeah, it's a blessing though. It's a blessing that there's I've got lots of little things that I can tap into and a beautiful network. So yeah.
Which is the most important thing, I think. Like you said,
Mm.
community is everything. There was a really great question from Ravita that which you kind of answered, Tawiah, actually, but I'd love to talk to you, to hear from both of you about just collaboration in both spaces. I
Mm,
know you both co-score.
mhm.
Sophia, you co-score with Ian on some projects as well. How does that? What does maybe we've got a little bit of time actually. Maybe you can get a little bit into the specificity of that when you're working on screen composing, and then when you take that to your artist space, if you're perhaps not collaborating or you want to find spaces for that, do you feel that pull?
Mhm. Um, yeah, I do a lot with Lindsay. I don't know if you want to say anything, Lindsay. I know your camera's off.
Just front, Lindsay. That's a
Are you
hard.
there? Lindsay said nope. Um, yeah, with the score stuff, working with Lindsay is, oh wait, it sounds, oh no, something's just popped up on my, um, it's beautiful. We've got our flow. We work in two separate studios and we just send each other stems and it works out. I think it would be weird if we were in the same room. I don't think there would be I would be like, wait, what? It really we've got a groove and we found a way to work and it's great. And I feel like when I work on my artist stuff, I start on my own. I start on my own. I do all the demos and then I get like my pals to come and play, which is actually it's been good with composition actually because I've been able to play a lot and not necessarily call people in because not all the shows have had budgets. So that's actually been really good and it's given me confidence to actually just play the guitar lines I wrote. But I just know so many amazing musicians that I'm like, can you play? Can you do this guitar line? But actually it's been that's been really nice. But yeah, I think for my own stuff, I like to kind of get it to a place first before um asking other musicians or getting a co-producer. I work a lot with a producer, a fantastic producer called Jody, but he's great because he feeds into what's there. He doesn't change the sound. He just like he's able to just hug it and enhance it. It's perfect. And a lot of the time he's just like, no, that bass line, that I'm not even changing the sound on that bass is perfect. I'm like, that's why I like you, babes. Do you know what I mean? Words of affirmation. So yeah, I collaborate a lot in all the things. It's really beautiful. But there's always a moment, even with the stuff with Lindsay, like we just have to have that moment by ourselves to just find, what it is that we're trying to say. And then it's like, okay, oh, what if I change the bass line? Yeah, actually that sounds wicked. Oh, let me add a little let me put a little clarinet on it. So yeah, but I always need to start first on my own. Nobody. Nobody around.
I feel like I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say the opposite, but when I do the co-scores with Ian, we're literally sitting in the same room doing every single cue together at the same MIDI keyboard, sometimes like playing, low strings and high strings at the same time, sort of thing. And I do think it's taken a long time to kind of get rid of any sort of hesitancy, any sort of like embarrassment. Because, there's that element when you go into the studio with someone where it's like, you don't want to make a mistake. You have to get so comfortable with somebody to be able to just kind of like mess up and not have it be like a thing.
Mm,
So I feel like Ian and I, because we're also life partners, just kind of go and one of us can mess, like there's literally no judgment, which is really nice. So I feel like that's such a great collaborative process whenever we get to do that. And, speaking of voice, I feel like, and it sounds like you and Lindsay are sort of the same, Tawiah, where it's like he has his sound, I have my sound, and then when we're together, we have sort of like a third sound, which is kind
yeah.
of like a mix of stuff. So it's nice to kind of flex that muscle a little bit too, because it does bring inspirations of more like, things that he might be good at that then I bring back to my music. Um, so that's always fun when we get to do that. But for my own artist project, and it's very solitary. Like I'm trying to collaborate more with other people, but it tends to be sort of like sending people a structure of something and then having them play on it or having them sort of like add things on. I really have always struggled to just like sit in a studio and come up with a track with somebody. Like I feel like that's just been a, like a real still like, it'll be a lifelong learning process. So I'm trying to work on collaborating with more people sort of in my releases. But it might also just be that I do so much collaboration when I do co-scores with Ian that maybe it's kind of like this is mine. I don't know, who knows, but working on it.
Yeah. Hey,
But collaborating is great. It
it is.
brings so much to the table. It brings so many new things and spices and flavors and
Absolutely.
yeah.
My last album, I collaborated with my partner, which was really interesting because they're not a musician or anything, but they wrote all the lyrics and um the concept. And but it was, again, I felt like I grew as an artist in that when somebody's like and they're not singing any notes, but I'm like, all right, I got you. Leave the room for 2 seconds and I'll sing what I think you mean. But yeah, I love it. I think collaboration always allows for growth. Sometimes, my default is to start on my own, but I do enjoy collaboration.
Yeah, someone that also co-scores, I always find I love this idea of this third voice, and I think I find that it unlocks a door I didn't even know was a door when they add something. Like you're like, I'm going this way, I'm going, oh wait, I can go that way. Oh, that's so interesting. It's so exciting. You just love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I find this idea of ending a project. I have a curiosity about it, how you do it as an artist. Um, what in scoring we get you said affirmation, we get affirmations, we get whether wildly enthusiastic, you're the best ever, or yeah, approved. But you get a full stop. How do you let go as an artist? How do you know when you're done? How do you know when it's ready to speak to the world?
I think for me, it I my whole thing is have it, I go by feeling. So I'm like, does this feel right? Is this the feeling? And if it is, I leave it. Even if there's a flat note in the take, that's the emotions right. And so I think I always go with that. I think that definitely has a lot to do with my upbringing because I was raised in a church and I used to be like the praise and worship leader. So it was all about the energy, right? Of just conjuring something that was otherworldly outside of yourself, beyond words, transcending words, and it's feeling. So if I feel it in creating it and I feel it and I'm in it and I'm there, then I try not to overthink it after because I know that I went there when in the process of creating it. So I think that's always been my barometer. People are like, oh, the mix could be a bit better.
Yeah,
You're
it's
probably
so hard.
right, but
So healthy.
But that's beautiful. Like that's so I wish that I could let go as much as that. I mean, I feel like I'm working towards it. I mean, for me, very often it's sort of like I'll keep working, I'll keep working. I'll give myself some sort of deadline. Like what I'm working on right now, it's like, the people that might want to put it out, like sort of need to hear something ASAP. So it's like sort of working towards that goal, sort of, imminent goal. And then, there'll be some fine tuning, but essentially like the structure and like structurally things are done. I think we can all get very nitpicky over EQs and effects and whatever.
yeah,
And I found the best way for me to end things is to, again, to collaborate and to bring other people in to whether it's like mix it, master it, and then it kind of becomes up to like when they're available. So like if they have an opening in a month, then like it'll be done by next month because I really want to work with them. So it feels nice to kind of put it on someone else and on their deadlines to be able to make your own deadlines.
Mm.
Because that's the biggest thing I hear from people who, whether they're composers or not, when they're like, oh, like I just can't, I've been working on this record for 3 years, like I just can't, like, and it's just, you just have to, at some point, you just have to, like, whether it's something as simple as putting a deadline in your calendar and just being like, this is it.
Mhm.
Like, this is when it has to come out.
Yeah, that is important. Yeah, it's true because we can float and time's moving fast.
Mhm.
Suddenly you're like, wait, when was my last? Oh my God, it's been like 3, 4 years. Goodness. So yeah, I do think like deadlines, like for me, there's a show that's happening at the end of the year, and I'm like, all right, that's when the album needs to be done
Mhm.
way in advance of that gig because that's when yeah. So yeah, just little deadlines like that are super helpful. Otherwise, you can just
Go
Yeah.
on forever and ever and ever. Yeah, I've saying this to Sophie. I've got a hard drive from like 10 years ago that has yet to see the light of day.
see,
Yes, I
it's
need to.
like that.
If you have any questions, any final questions, please do pop them in the chat. We've got just a couple of minutes. What is next for you both screen composing and with your artist hat? What's on the horizon? What's exciting you?
You wanna go?
Yeah, so on the film side, I have a documentary that I scored called Prime Minister that's coming out in theaters in the US on Friday.
Yeah.
And it's about ex-Prime Minister, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. And it's all about how a woman or a politician can lead with love and empathy and, all the things we need right now. So that's coming out. And then I have another drama that I worked on last year that's finally coming out on Apple TV sometime this summer. Um, and then a couple other documentaries that I'm going to be starting on, but out of superstition, I never really talk about things that I haven't started yet.
Word.
Because last year I actually got fired for the first time and
Oh,
learned just not to tell anyone anything. Um, and
Right.
on the, yeah,
Congratulations.
huh? Congratulations. I know. It's like, yeah, yeah, I know. I heard all about it. But and on the artist side, I'm finishing up these demos to put out an EP or a record or kind of like a mix of both, probably early next year. So, you have to like plan so
yeah.
far in advance. And then if anyone is in London, I'm putting on this Solstice Solidarity Synthesis show on July 3rd. And there's a great lineup of electronic musicians. Part of proceeds go to charity. So that's what I've got coming up.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, currently working on season 2 of Black Ops with Lindsay. Um, got my first feature film. Yay. But yeah, I won't say too much about that, but I'm excited about that. Um, and I am, yeah, like I said, next month, locking it, blocking it out, finishing the album. So yeah, lots going on. Yeah.
We have one final question, which is from Leia, and it is, how do you, if you do, go about finding a brand that is specifically about being a film and TV composer? It doesn't feel so obvious to me as work and sounds can be so varied.
Um, I mean, this is like a controversial take, but I do think that even if you're, focusing on just composing as your thing and you don't have like an artist thing, it doesn't mean that you can't have a website that's a little bit more graphically interesting or photos that are not of you conducting or sitting in the studio. There's ways of sort of setting yourself up and differentiating yourself. Because I do think so much of it is just kind of like trying to just do whatever you think is cool, not whatever someone else thinks is cool. Um, because I feel like the kind of scoring world or the way that like film composer sort of, I hate the word content, but it always kind of ends up being these various like shades of beige, into like, gray beige, it's all kind of this, and it's fine, but I really think that there is space in anything, especially nowadays, to kind of be a little bit more, um, stand out a little bit more. I don't know if that's the answer to the question, but maybe. I don't know. What do you think, Talia?
What was the question?
It was just about whether you ever consider branding yourself for film and TV, or you consider that. But I feel like for you, from what you've said in over the last hour, you are you know, you have your what huge variety of sounds.
Yeah, I think so.
Sort of
Yeah,
for both of you, it all kind of whether or not you have two Instagram accounts or one, it all feeds into
yeah.
the same creative soul.
Mm.
Thank you both so much for such a fantastic chat. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and your honesty, because I do think it is hard, and we are very lucky to be part of this incredible community and be able to share and talk to each other. Please, please go and listen to the work of these incredible artists. Go and watch their shows. Go to their live shows. Very, very important. I'm sure they put everything out on Instagram when they are doing live shows. Please follow them.
I'll just say go out to any of your friends' shows.
Yeah.
Like just if you even if your friends' band is awful, if you're friends with them, it's like it it means so much, you know, like literally just and you know, of course like there's financial limitations, but like try to go out to free things. I don't know. I just think that
Support,
what
support each
it's
other.
just so important to have bodies in the room because if
Yeah.
there's no bodies in the room, then venues close. Then
Mm.
venues being closed, then people complain there's nothing going on. You know, it's like it all feeds into this kind of like cycle of stuff. So yeah, just if you can, support your friends however you can. And us, but like your friends too. Yeah.
And that is the most beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much to everyone that joined. This will be up on YouTube soon. We really appreciate your time. Tawiah, Sofia, thank you so much. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.
Peace.
You